Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question today. Are you living God's plan for your life? Are you walking in the purpose He designed specifically for you? Or are you merely existing, drifting through life without a clear sense of direction? Many of us go through life feeling unfulfilled, questioning whether we are truly living as God intended. But let me tell you, God does not create anything without a purpose. If you have breath in your lungs, He has a plan for you. Today I want to share with you 8 key truths that will help you understand and walk in His divine plan for your life. Nothing in creation exists without a reason. Every tree, every river, and every star in the sky serves a purpose. The same is true for you. You were not placed on this earth randomly. God designed you with a specific purpose in mind. Before you even took your first breath, He had already determined your destiny. Jeremiah 1:05. This means you are not a mistake, no matter how you came into this world. A manufacturer never creates a product without a purpose. Every electronic device, every vehicle, and every tool is made with an intended function. A car is designed to transport people. A phone is made for communication. If you try to use a phone to cook food or a car as a bed, it won't work effectively because that was never its purpose. In the same way, if you live outside God's intended design for your life, frustration, confusion, and dissatisfaction will follow. Consider an eagle. It is built to soar, with wings designed for the heights. If an eagle spends its life walking on the ground with chickens, it will never reach its full potential. It may survive, but it will never thrive. Many people live like this, settling for a life far below what God intended because they do not understand their divine purpose. Discovering your purpose starts with understanding your unique design. Your talents, skills, and passions are clues to what God has called you to do. Some people are naturally gifted in leadership, while others have a heart for helping and serving. Some artistic and others excel in problem solving. These abilities are not accidental. They are intentional gifts from God to equip you for your assignment. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 2:10, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." This means there are things only you were created to do. If you do not step into your purpose, the world misses out on something God intended to be released through you. Many people struggle with identity because they seek validation in the wrong places. They allow society, culture, or people's opinions to define them rather than seeking the one who created them. Imagine a high-tech device trying to function without its instruction manual. It may work in some ways, but will never reach its full potential. The Bible is your manual, written by the one who designed you. It reveals your purpose, identity, and destiny. If you feel lost or unsure of your purpose, start by seeking God. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." Purpose is not something you create. It is something you discover by walking closely with God. Most people have dreams for their lives. Some desire wealth, influence, or success in their careers. Others dream of having a family, traveling the world, or making a difference in their communities. These dreams may be good, but God's plan is always greater. He sees beyond what we can see and knows what is truly best for us. Joseph in the Bible is a perfect example of this. As a young boy, he had dreams of greatness, visions of leadership and influence, but he never could have imagined the journey that would take him there. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. To the natural eye, it seemed like his life was moving in the opposite direction of his dreams. But what looked like setbacks were actually setups for something greater. Genesis 50:20 tells us that what others meant for evil, God used for good. Joseph's trials positioned him for his ultimate assignment, to save nations from famine. Many people abandon God's plan because they expect an easy path. When things don't go as planned, they assume they have failed or missed their calling. But God often uses obstacles, delays, and even disappointments to prepare us for something bigger. The difficulties you face are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to shape you. Look at Moses. He had a passion for justice and wanted to help his people, but when he acted in his own strength, he failed. He fled to the wilderness thinking his purpose was over, yet God's plan was not canceled. In fact, his time in the wilderness was training for his ultimate assignment, to lead an entire nation to freedom. We often limit ourselves to what we think is possible. We plan our lives based on what we believe we can achieve with our abilities and resources. But Ephesians 3:20 reminds us that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. His plans exceed our imagination. Consider a child who dreams of owning a small bicycle, but their father plans to buy them a car when they grow up. The child's dream is limited by their understanding, but the father knows what they will need in the future. In the same way, our dreams are often small compared to what God has in store for us. One of the biggest barriers to stepping into God's plan is fear. Many people resist God's direction because they are afraid to leave their comfort zone. They cling to what is familiar, even if it is less than what God has for them. Abraham had to leave his home and everything he knew to follow God's call. If he had stayed where he was comfortable, he would have missed out on becoming the father of many nations. Another barrier is control. Many struggle to surrender their plans because they want to be in charge. But trusting God means letting go of control and allowing him to lead. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us that God's thoughts and ways are higher than ours. What may seem like a detour or delay is often divine preparation. If your dreams feel small, it may be because you are looking at life through your own abilities rather than God's limitless power. He sees your future, your potential, and the impact you can have. When you align your life with his plan, he will take you places you never imagined. The question is, are you willing to trust him? Many people desire to fulfill God's plan for their lives, yet they struggle to take the necessary steps because obedience often requires faith beyond human reasoning. God never reveals the entire journey at once. He gives instructions step by step. Obedience is the key that unlocks doors to destiny. Without it, purpose remains a distant dream. Throughout Scripture, God has called individuals to do things that seemed illogical at the time. When Noah was instructed to build the ark, there was no sign of rain. The idea of a flood must have seemed ridiculous to those around him. Yet, because he obeyed, he and his family were saved, and he played a crucial role in God's plan for humanity. Noah's story teaches a fundamental truth. Obedience often comes before understanding. Many people want clarity before they obey, but God requires trust before revelation. Abraham's life is another example. God commanded him to leave his homeland and journey to an unknown place. Abraham had no map, no clear details, just a promise from God that he would make him a great nation. If Abraham had insisted on knowing the full plan before taking action, he would have remained in the land of his ancestors, missing out on his divine calling. His obedience led to a covenant that shaped the course of history. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Many people hesitate when God calls them to something greater. Fear of the unknown, the opinions of others, and personal insecurities hold them back. But when God gives an instruction, it is for a reason. A single act of obedience can change the course of a person's life. Consider Peter, who had been fishing all night without success. When Jesus told him to cast his net again, Peter initially hesitated. He was an experienced fisherman. Logic told him it was pointless, but he chose to obey, and his nets were so full they began to break. Luke 5:05-6. His obedience led to an overflow of blessing. Some people ask, why hasn't God revealed my purpose? The truth is, God rarely gives the next instruction until we have followed the last one. If a person refuses to obey in small things, how can they expect to be entrusted with greater responsibilities? Jesus said in Luke 16:10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Many people are waiting for a big breakthrough, but they have not yet obeyed the first step. Obedience also requires persistence. There are moments when God's plan will lead through difficult or uncomfortable situations. The Israelites had to march around Jericho for 7 days before the walls fell. Naaman had to dip in the Jordan River 7 times before he was healed of leprosy. The breakthrough didn't happen immediately, but persistence in obedience brought the miracle. Faith and obedience go hand in hand. When Jesus told the servants at the wedding in Cana to fill the jars with water, they could have questioned his instructions. It made no logical sense, yet when they obeyed, the water turned into wine. God does not require people to understand his plan. He requires them to follow his voice. The greatest blessings, breakthroughs, and destinies are unlocked by simple acts of obedience. Fear has kept more people from fulfilling their God-given purpose than failure ever has. It is a silent thief, robbing individuals of opportunities, delaying progress, and causing them to settle for less than what God intended. Doubt whispers that they are not qualified, that they will fail, that others will judge them. If left unchecked, these voices become louder than God's promises. Moses is a prime example of someone who allowed fear and doubt to cloud his calling. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses did not respond with excitement. He responded with excuses. He doubted his ability to speak, feared rejection, and questioned whether the people would listen to him. But God did not choose Moses because he was perfect. He chose him because he had a plan. Moses nearly disqualified himself through self-doubt, yet God reassured him that it was not about his ability, but about divine power working through him. Exodus 4:10 through 12. Many people today make the same mistake. They believe they are not smart enough, skilled enough, or strong enough to do what God has called them to do. But history proves that God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Gideon was hiding in fear when God called him a mighty warrior. David was just a shepherd boy when he was anointed to be king. Each of them could have allowed doubt to stop them, but they chose to trust God's voice over their fears. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. People say they are waiting for the right time or being realistic, when in reality they are afraid to step out in faith. But if Peter had waited for perfect conditions, he would have never walked on water. Fear tells people to stay in the boat, to stick with what is safe, to avoid risks. But purpose requires stepping into the unknown, trusting that God will sustain them. Doubt also creeps in when people focus on their weaknesses rather than God's strength. When the 12 spies were sent to scout the promised land, 10 of them focused on the giants. They saw themselves as grasshoppers compared to their enemies. Only Joshua and Caleb focused on God's promise rather than their obstacles. Numbers 33:33. The result, the 10 who doubted never entered the land, while Joshua and Caleb inherited the promise. Fear and doubt can literally prevent a person from walking into their destiny. The enemy knows that fear is a powerful weapon. If he can convince someone that they are not capable, that they are not good enough, that they will fail, he can stop them before they even begin. This is why God repeatedly tells his people, do not fear. It is the most common command in the Bible because God understands that fear is one of the greatest barriers to faith. Overcoming fear starts with shifting focus. Instead of looking at limitations, look at God's ability. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. Instead of worrying about failure, trust that God is in control. Taking action despite fear is what separates those who fulfill their purpose from those who do not. Esther risked her life to approach the king and save her people. Daniel faced a den of lions rather than compromise his faith. They felt fear, but they refused to let it dictate their decisions. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Fear will always be present when stepping into something new. It is a sign that something significant is ahead. The enemy does not attack those who have no purpose. The very presence of fear is often confirmation that what lies beyond it is worth pursuing. The choice is simple. Allow fear and doubt to steal what God has promised, or trust in his strength and move forward. Every great person of faith had to confront fear before stepping into their destiny. The question is, will you let fear stop you, or will you step out in? Many people believe that because of their past mistakes, failures, or shortcomings, they are unworthy of God's purpose. Shame and regret weigh them down, convincing them that they are too broken to be used by God. This is one of the greatest lies the enemy tells. But God's plan for your life is not canceled by your past. He does not call perfect people. He calls willing people. Moses was a murderer. David committed adultery and arranged the death of a man to cover his sin. Paul persecuted Christians and approved of their executions. If God had disqualified people based on their past, none of these men would have fulfilled their destinies. Yet, Moses became a deliverer. David was called a man after God's own heart, and Paul became one of the greatest apostles in history. God does not look at where you have been. He looks at where he can take you. The enemy wants you to dwell on past failures so you will hesitate in stepping into your calling. But Romans 8:1 declares there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. When God forgives, he erases the past, and he does not hold it against you. The story of the prodigal son illustrates this truth powerfully. The son wasted his inheritance in reckless living, dishonoring his father. By the time he realized his mistake, he felt unworthy to return home. But when he did, his father ran to him, embraced him, and restored him completely. Luke 15:20-34. His past did not cancel his sonship. This is how God responds to those who return to him. He does not hold their mistakes over their heads. He restores them to their rightful place. Many people hesitate to pursue their purpose because they believe their past failures define them. But God does not use brokenness as a reason to disqualify. He uses it as a testimony of his power to redeem. Your past mistakes can become the very thing God uses to reach others. Paul's past as a persecutor of Christians made his transformation even more powerful. Rahab, once a prostitute, was part of the lineage of Jesus because she chose to trust in God's plan. Some people feel unworthy because of the way others see them. Maybe family members, teachers, or friends have labeled them as failures, but human opinion does not define destiny. When Samuel went to anoint the next king of Israel, he assumed God would choose one of David's older, more experienced brothers. But God told him, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. God chooses people based on his plan, not on people's opinion. Your past is not a life sentence. It is a testimony. Every scar, every failure, every struggle can be transformed into something beautiful when surrendered to God. The key is to stop allowing the past to define you and start seeing yourself as God sees you. God's plan for your life is never just about you. True purpose is always connected to serving others. The greatest leaders in history were not those who sought personal gain, but those who devoted themselves to making a difference in the lives of others. Jesus himself, though King of Kings, declared in Matthew 20:28, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." If the greatest man to ever walk the earth placed service at the center of his purpose, then true success is found in doing the same. Some people chase after their dreams thinking only about personal success, wealth, or recognition. But fulfillment does not come from self-centered ambition. It comes from impact. The most significant achievements in life are those that leave a lasting effect on others. Consider Mother Teresa. She did not seek riches or fame, yet her life impacted millions. She devoted herself to serving the poor, the sick, and the forgotten. Her life is proof that purpose is not measured by how much a person accumulates, but by how much they give. Joseph's journey also illustrates this principle. His dream as a young boy was to be a leader, but God's plan for him was bigger. It was to save nations from famine. He was not elevated to power for his own sake, but so that he could serve others. Every trial he endured, from betrayal to imprisonment, was preparing him for a purpose that extended beyond himself. True purpose requires looking beyond personal gain and asking, how can my life bless others? Your gifts, talents, and abilities are not just for you. A doctor's skills serve the sick. A teacher's knowledge serves students. An entrepreneur's vision creates opportunities for others. Purpose is about using what God has given you to impact lives. Service also brings fulfillment. Many people achieve material success but still feel empty because they are not making a difference in the world. Studies show that people who give their time and resources to help others experience greater happiness and life satisfaction. God designed us to thrive in service, not in selfish ambition. Some people hesitate to serve because they feel unqualified, but God does not require perfection to use you. He requires availability. When Jesus fed the 5,000, he did not ask for a grand feast. He used what was available, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and multiplied it. When you offer what you have, even if it seems small, God multiplies it to bless others. Service is not just about grand acts. It is found in everyday opportunities. Encouraging a struggling friend, mentoring a young person, giving to someone in need. These simple actions align you with God's purpose. The more you serve, the more clarity you gain about your purpose. Those who live with a mindset of service are the ones God elevates. He does not promote people for their own glory. He promotes those who will use their influence to serve his kingdom. If you want to step into your purpose, shift the focus from what can I gain to how can I serve. When you do, doors will open, opportunities will arise, and fulfillment will follow. God's plan for your life is not just about what he has called you to do, but also when he has called you to do it. Timing plays a critical role in fulfilling your destiny. A purpose fulfilled outside of its appointed time can be just as dangerous as not fulfilling it at all. When you move ahead of God's timing, you may find yourself unprepared, lacking the maturity, resources, or wisdom needed for the task. When you lag behind, you risk missing opportunities that God has already orchestrated for you. David was anointed as king while he was still a shepherd boy, yet he did not immediately step into the throne. He had to go through a process of preparation. He served under Saul, faced opposition, and endured hardship before the right time came for him to rule. If David had tried to seize the throne before God's appointed time, he would have stepped into leadership without the experience and spiritual strength necessary to govern a nation. The waiting period was not a delay. It was a divine setup for his success. Many people struggle with waiting. They see others achieving success and wonder why their own breakthrough has not come yet. Comparison leads to frustration, and frustration leads to impatience. But Isaiah 40:31 reminds us, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting on God is not passive. It is a time of strengthening, refining, and preparing for the responsibility that comes with purpose. Joseph had a dream of leadership, but he spent years in slavery and prison before he saw it come to pass. If he had been promoted too soon, he would not have been ready for the weight of governing Egypt. His trials were part of God's process to build his character, teach him wisdom, and position him at the right place at the right time. God's timing also applies to relationships and opportunities. Many people force connections or rush into things because they are anxious for results. But when God brings the right people and the right doors into your life at the right time, it leads to lasting success. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." What is forced too soon may not last, but what God orchestrates in its season will flourish. Discerning divine timing requires spiritual sensitivity. When God says move, you must be ready to step forward in faith. When he says wait, you must trust that he is working behind the scenes. Jesus did not begin his public ministry until the appointed time. He waited for 30 years before stepping into the calling that would change the world. Even when his mother urged him to perform a miracle at the wedding in Cana, his response was, "My hour has not yet come," John 2:04. Jesus understood that even though he had the power, he still needed to operate in God's divine schedule. Many people give up because they assume a delay means denial. But a closed door today does not mean it will be closed forever. Sometimes God withholds something not because he is saying no, but because he is saying not yet. Trusting in divine timing means believing that what he has promised will come to pass at the right moment. The question is, will you trust his timing, or will you try to force things in your own strength? Faith alone is not enough if it is not accompanied by action. Many people believe in God's plan for their lives, but never take the necessary steps to walk in it. They pray for doors to open, but never move toward them. They declare that they trust God, but hesitate to step out in obedience. Faith is the foundation of purpose, but action is what brings it to life. The Bible says in James 2:26, faith without works is dead. This means that believing in your calling is not enough. You must take action to fulfill it. Imagine a farmer who prays for a great harvest but never plants any seeds. No matter how strong his faith is, without action there will be no results. Abraham is called the father of faith, not because he simply believed, but because he acted on God's instructions. When God told him to leave his homeland and go to an unknown land, he obeyed without hesitation. If he had remained where he was, his destiny would have remained unfulfilled. Faith required movement. Many people are waiting for a perfect moment before they act. They wait for more resources, better conditions, or greater clarity. But God rarely gives all the details up front. He requires people to move in faith, trusting that He will provide what is needed along the way. Peter would have never walked on water if he had waited for the waves to calm down. He stepped out while the storm was still raging, and that act of faith allowed him to experience the miraculous. Taking action does not mean acting recklessly. It means aligning your steps with God's direction. Some people hesitate out of fear, while others act impulsively without seeking God's guidance. Both extremes can lead to failure. The key is to pray, listen, and then move as God leads. David did not sit idly when Goliath threatened Israel. He did not just pray for victory, he took action. He picked up his sling and stones and stepped forward in faith. If he had waited for someone else to fight the battle, he would have missed his divine appointment. His faith was not just belief, it was belief followed by action. Faith also requires perseverance. Some people take the first step, but retreat when challenges arise. They start a business, but quit when obstacles come. They begin a ministry, but stop when things don't move as quickly as they hoped. But Galatians 6:9 reminds us, let us not grow weary in doing good. For at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Action must be sustained for faith to bear fruit. Nehemiah saw the broken walls of Jerusalem and believed they could be rebuilt. But he did not just pray about it, he developed a plan, gathered resources, and led the people in rebuilding. His faith was combined with strategy and effort. Many people miss their breakthrough because they pray but never prepare. They expect success without taking steps toward it. Walking in purpose requires both trust in God and a willingness to take action. It means praying and working, believing and building, trusting and stepping forward. When faith and action come together, nothing is impossible. My friends, God's plan for you is greater than anything you could dream for yourself, but you must be willing to trust Him, obey Him, and step out in faith. You were not created to simply exist. You were created to fulfill a divine assignment. So I ask you again, are you living God's plan for your life? If not, today is the day to surrender, seek Him, trust Him, and step boldly into the destiny He has prepared for you.